Gluten-free bread. Now, you may not expect to find this in a core bread baking course, but you're gonna get asked. And when I had a bakery, it was a frequent question every day: do you do gluten-free bread? And I regret to say I did start selling this stuff and it was quite popular. However, with a big bakery, flour going everywhere, I didn't really feel that I could really say that there was no risk of contamination. So even though I explained to customers at the time, you know, it's baked in the same environment, I wasn't 100% confident in not like making somebody ill. So I stopped it after a while, or I did a batch. And then would freeze them, and then once I made 8 loaves, freeze them, do a little bit each day, and then that was it. Or baked them in my home bakery, just made it at home. I kind of really strayed away from doing it because it's really complicated these days. You do not want to make anyone ill. But if you want to make it at home and you know you've got people around and you can make sure your area is clean, then why not give it a go? Because you're going to get asked by it. You're going to know someone that is gluten intolerant or wheat intolerant, and they're going to ask you, do you do it when you start talking about bread baking? Do you do a gluten-free loaf? And well, now you can. One of the core things about the difference between bread baking normally and gluten-free bread baking is the lack of gluten. You are not building any structure, you're pretty much baking a cake that's risen with yeast. So we're going to need warm temperature to make it rise. We're going to need also to use quite a lot of water, and there is no real mixing, it's just gathering it together and putting it in a tin. I know, great isn't it? So let's start off with the water first of all. So I'm going to use 350 grams of water, but I want to get this at the right temperature, because this is going to... So we'll tear that glass and we'll put the water in there. So we're going to mix the right temperature in here. Okay, so we want to get this to around about 38 degrees. Let's turn it on again. And it's at 14 at the minute, so add a bit of warm water up there, a bit cold, a bit warm. That is fine actually, I said that wrong, it's between 28 and 32 you want to be at, and that's 32, that's going to be fine. That means the dough temperature will be a little bit cooler than that, because obviously the flour isn't warmed up, so we're going to look at about 28 degrees, which is bang on what we want really. So let's chuck that bowl on there first of all and tear the water, and then so we want 350. Next up, the flour. So I've cleaned everything thoroughly, so there really isn't much chance at all of any contamination, because I'm going to give this to a friend of mine tomorrow who is gluten-free. So it's the same quantity, so 350 grams. Okay. Right, and yeah, I'm going to just put that over there, and I'm going to weigh everything else separately and add it to that. For this, we're using dried yeast, so we use about half of what we normally use, so 3.5 grams. In that goes. Next, some sugar. So 7 grams of this. That can go in there now. And then the salt, again, 7 grams of salt, which is 2%. Now I'm going to add the oil in as well into this one. Again, 7. It's quite easy to remember this recipe. That's just over there. And then we get our whisk and give this all a good whisk. I'm finding with the salt that I'm using, it's not breaking down unless I mix it for quite a long time. So as we're not going to be mixing this for a long time, I'm going to whisk it all in now. Same with the yeast. I want to activate it anyway, as it's dry yeast. I want to make sure it's broken down. I don't need to add the oil in yet, it's not necessary, so I haven't. It's not necessary in bread baking, we just don't do it. That looks delicious. So in the oil goes there. Then we're just going to add the flour into the mixture. You could probably get away with using the whisk anyway, but I think a dough scraper, make sure you get everything off the edges. Now, you can use a xanthium gum, and that kind of acts as the gluten, which gives it more structure, but a lot of people don't like it because of the reason that it's no good for you. It is just plastic, so if you can make bread without it, it's going to be a bit better for you. So here we go. Now, if you feel that it's still a little bit runny, can add a little bit more flour in. I'm not going to put much more in, just a sprinkle. Okay, it is supposed to be fairly runny though, and the reason for that is the lighter it is, the lighter the bread will be. So that is probably better. So I added what, another 10 grams on there, so really 360 grams to 350 flour would be a little bit more accurate. Make sure there's no lumps. Okay, so now I'm just going to get my bread tins and we'll pour them in. Okay, as always with bread baking in tins, I always recommend you put a drop of oil in the bottom and just give them a little grease, just in case it sticks. If you're confident that they're fine, then by all means leave it. Make sure you get the tops as well. But it's happened to me so many times when I made a nice loaf of bread and it's stuck. So just a drop of oil, rub it all the way around. If you want to soak up the worst part at the end with a bit of kitchen roll or something like that, then yeah, you can do. Okay, so our mixture is ready. Let's pour it in. And we're only going to go to about halfway because it's got to rise. And that's it. 2 gluten-free loaves ready to go. We'll leave that to prove. It'll take about 1 to 2 hours, and then we just go straight in the oven. Okay, as you can see, about an hour later, our sourdough bread is popping up to the surface, so it's got to go in. We're going to just sprinkle a bit of flour on top, and then into the oven. We're doing 180 degrees, so remember, it is baking a cake. We need to bake that internal core. So yeah, 180 degrees, we'll chuck it in. Hopefully we'll get a nice little bit of oven spring which will make the loaf. We have to be careful with it though. look at it after about 20 minutes. Okay, so here they are. And I ended up turning the heat up to 200 and putting the top oven on right at the end, just to make sure that we had a bit of colour on the top of our bread. And it's stuck somehow. This is a great example of what to do when it gets stuck. Just run a palette knife along the edge. It's usually on these bits that it gets stuck. There you go. Give it a little tap in there. A little tap in there. And so I loosened that with the with the palette knife just around the edges. It was stuck kind of on the edge around there. And yeah, look, done. There you go. Gluten-free bread for your friends to enjoy.